Let's learn a little bit about both of you, and let's have a little bit of fun. And Cilna, I do believe, actually, on that note, that you've got an anniversary coming up in the next 2 days or something like that. Is that true?
Can you believe it? Yes, my admission anniversary. I can't believe it. We used to have Bruno. I think you would remember him. A much more senior practitioner, Grester, who passed away recently. And he always, when you see him in court, he was also always in motion court. He did his own motions until he retired. And every time you ask him how he's doing, he will always say, still on the roll. So I just want to say, it's been 14 years. Okay, I still have 2 days left, but I think it's going to be fine. 2 days, 2 days to go to 14 years admitted. And I'm still on the roll.
Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, it's all 14 years, man. That's a long time. But I mean, that's the wealth of experience that you bring, and as well as Bruno, and you bring to our viewers and to me. But I wanted to ask you now. So it's 14 years since you've been admitted. Don't you have any outrageous or crazy little stories for us that you may want to share with the viewers? Something that just comes to mind.
I think there's so much. I think Bruno, you and I should probably write a book at some stage just about eviction stories. And I think for our viewers might not know this, but I started the firm. When we started the firm, it was Steyn and Steyn, only SSLR from 2015. But I got admitted and said, I will not practice law a day in my life. I'll be admitted, but there's no way. I'm not going to practice law ever, ever, ever. And I actually then worked as a financial advisor for a bit. And my first job as an admitted attorney was actually as a partner in Steyn and Steyn, because my partner that I started the firm with is also my ex-husband. But he said he's going to start a firm. That sounds like fun. And I said, that sounds fun. Maybe I do want to be an attorney. So I joined and we started the firm. So that was potentially one of the silliest, maybe brave things to do, to have your first job as an admitted attorney, as a partner in a brand new law firm. That was that was a funny one. So I've been admitted for 14 years. The firm is now 13 and a half years old. So you can see that my entire life as an attorney has been in SSLR. And I have so many stories, Chris, but while we're talking about evictions, I think I'll go to eviction stories. I have so many amazing things of, tenants just after you obtain the eviction order, they do funny things like put the plugs in all the taps and flood the place. Or I had a very creative one that got very upset with me in court. And he said to me, I will find you and I will get you. And I'm like, dude, I'm here. Like, you don't have to really go far. I'm like, you got me now. Can we maybe finish whatever you want to do right now? And he was so upset on his way out. And the day before the sheriff came, because he knew when the sheriff's coming to do the eviction, he put meat in the ceilings. And it was obviously a massive surprise. Somebody recently told me also about a tenant, not one of my clients, where somebody sewed fish into the curtains. It's a finished place. And so I've seen that, but I think my favorite story, Chris, is an eviction. I got the properties, was in Centurion. And this was in the old days when I still actively worked on matters and did my own evictions. And this client told me that he's very concerned. Something is weird about this place because his tenants, there's a lot of movement, people in and out of the property, and they stopped paying their rent, but they're not allowing him access to the premises. But eventually he forced access. Okay, that wasn't cool and we shouldn't be doing that, but he did. And he realized why they don't want to allow him in the place is they changed this rental property they're renting from him into a brothel but an advanced brothel. And I've evicted quite a few brothels. I can tell you, when you know you're evicting a brothel, because the ceilings are always gone. I don't know what happens to the ceilings. Don't ask me that question, but the ceilings are always gone. But this particular brothel was a special kind of brothel. It was a fetish house. So they turned every room into like a theme thing. So like a school setup, and I remember there was a hospital sort of setup. And this guy had this crowny, like a throne, wooden big throne built for him at the one side of the corridor, and then now with all the different rooms. And his wife changed her name. I won't say the names, obviously, but I can because it's public, but I'm not going to do that. But she changed her name from like a very Afrikaans, like Afrikaanse meisie, né? Like her dad would be super upset about this, to like a very, I can't remember what it was. I think something like dormitories or something. I'm dead serious. And like on her ID, that was her name. And she was now obviously pimped out by her own husband, who sat on his throne the entire time. And it was the weirdest situation. And as weird as the entire thing was, my favorite part of it was the day the sheriff went to do the eviction. He called me and he said, Cilna, I have seen things in my life. I'm a sheriff. Okay, I see things, but this is on a whole new level. But so what I think the takeaway lesson from that story is
takeaway lesson, yeah.
Prostitution clearly doesn't actually pay, because why weren't they able to pay their rent? Why?
Well, yeah, okay. Anyway, I was going to say something, but I think it's very insensitive.
We don't want to edit anything out of this.
Yeah, so it's fine. It's fine. I accept that lesson.
This is the funny. That was my favorite. That was one of my favorite stories. I was so surprised. It took me quite some time to get over it.
Sure.
I'm like, wow, I'm still flabbergasted. That's such a crazy story. But I mean, it's so interesting because you just never know what's going to come through the door. Well, not come through the door. I mean, you never know what you're going to come across.
The walls.
Or through the wall. Yeah, exactly. You never know what you're going to come across. And I think that's, look, evictions are never a nice thing for the people going through them, for the people who have to do them. But look, at the end of the day, Cilna, you wouldn't have had the story if it wasn't for that, or this memory at least. Bruno, I'm going to open it up to you as well. Do you have anything for us that you just like, wow, that was crazy, or even just funny, or something that you just want to share with us?
Sure. I mean, there's so many different stories, like over the years. It's actually crazy. Like just now when we were chatting, like you reminded me of the one where you almost got kidnapped and pulled into a unit when you delivered a letter of demand for me. And yeah, it's absolutely insane. So insofar as things on walls are concerned, I've had so many. So aside from people just out of spite, just trying to like do random shit to the wall. Sorry, wait, I shouldn't have said that. I'm tired, guys. And I'm sure Genevieve will cut that out. I hope.
It's fine.
I am impressed that this is the only time this entire year that one of us accidentally swore.
Yeah,
I am so, cheers guys, I'm so proud of it.
Almost made it.
Look, I am asking about your guys' stories, so you can answer the way you would answer. It's fine. I want to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so things from walls, we've had people do crazy stuff. So trying to remove like permanent fixtures out of the house. So pieces of walls, like trying to take a built-in braais, trying to take home with them, anything that they installed, literally trying to pick it up and move it out the house. And then, of course, there was that one time where somebody decided to leave us with a present of their feces all over the wall. So you couldn't tell whether the wall was brown, painted brown, or whether it was something else. But like the smell kind of gave it away when you walked in there. And it's so funny because as Cilna was speaking about like the meat and the fish, I was like, See, that's doable. That almost sounds logical. Like, like anyone can do it. It's like, oh, let's just go buy some meat. Like, it's just meat now. It's not like it's got meat with flies. It's just meat. And then you put it in, the flies come afterwards, right? But like with this, it's like, what mindset, what frame of mind do you need to be in to be comfortable? Like, I don't know, going to the bathroom and saying, guys, everyone done? Okay, cool. And anyway, so yeah, that was interesting.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Right. Could you figure out with what the poop paint happened? Like, do you do that with like your hand?
No, that's what I'm asking. I think it was a lappy. It was but it's one of those cases where you don't want to sit and overly analyze. So you like kind of walked in there and you're like, the house is here, right? Okay, we're leaving and we're hiring someone and they're coming in here and they're cleaning this place up. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that's insane. Cool. The other guy, like even trying to remove the built-in braai was the funniest thing, because as we were doing the eviction, the guy was trying to do it with a chisel and a hammer. But I mean, this thing is huge. It's a massive braai. Like you need to, it's not easy to remove. And he's sitting there trying to remove it, until like the sheriff finally catches him. He's like, wait, what are you doing? And he's like, it's my braai. I paid for it. I'm taking it home. So yeah, so
the sheriff's like, no, no, oh no, you know.
And but like things, for example, like the fountains are always so funny, because depending on the size of the fountain, it like depends on whether it's a permanent fixture or not, because it's such a weird one. Like I've got little fountains at home like this big, and if I move out, I'll probably take them. And the bigger they get, the more you need to question yourself on whether these are permanent or not. So when you get like one of these fountains that are like mid-size and they're about here, and it's like, you could take them or maybe not. And the fight around this fountain and people trying to chip it away and pick it up, and the sheriff trying to keep it. Like we also had things like with what's those plants that are very expensive? I always forget. Cycads. Cycads, so and people like wanting to leave and taking cycads along with them, and like digging up all the cycads and moving out. But I think top story, or like very similar to Cilna's one, but this was like a initiation house. So the entire eviction took place whilst there was a naked man tied like to a tree or something in the backyard. And as you walk in, they were having like the weird, I don't know what was happening. So it wasn't like a normal thing. It was just like a naked guy.
Really?
Yeah, a naked guy tied to the back, and the sheriff's busy doing the eviction, and this poor naked guy is just there and just watching as things are happening.
So what you're saying is that he was a fixture in terms of the fountain.
Well, no one was touching him, because it's like when I did that other eviction, and this woman was smart. As we were there about to remove her and everything, she stood in the doorway and stripped down and stood there. And she's like, come, remove me now. And none of the male cops wanted to. So eventually, like, she bought herself like an hour while we waited for a female cop to come in to wrap a carpet or a curtain around her to move her. So yeah, it's...
So the take home from that is that if you want to buy yourself time, just strip down. Is that what you say?
Yeah, and be female.
No, don't do it. Oh man, that's great, guys. Both of your stories are crazy. But I also wanted to ask you one more thing, and I think all our viewers would like to know it, because I mean we've been together for such a long time, and I want to know this as well. Cilna, how did you get into evictions? Like, how did you get into it? Like, what was the process? I mean,
that's my favorite story. I think that's my favorite story of all my stories, how the evictions happen. So I told the story earlier of how the firm started, and I was 24 at the time. So I think if I didn't start the firm then, I don't know if I would have been brave enough or stupid enough to do it. so when you start a law firm, here's how it works. Especially when you're 24 and the other partner is 26. This is what we have. This is the majority we're dealing with. At least one sort of fully developed frontal lobe between the two of us. But, here we go now. And so what happens is you take everything. Anytime a client calls, whatever the client needs, you are now today. That is the thing that you do, and you're actually quite good at it. And most new firms start with rescission applications, and because you don't have a client base. We were very blessed in we started the firm actually in a very close relationship with Dykes van Heerden, which is a big conveyancing firm, and they were super kind to us. They gave us some office space, and they gave us their collections, which was basically the only thing that we had. But every other inquiry that comes in, you take it and you make it work. And so we had this one divorce. I hate divorces. I hate family law. I really, really do. I really don't like it. I enjoyed my own divorce, but other than that, I'm not a fan of divorces. But so I had this divorce, but my client was and a grillerige sort of woman. And I won't say bad things about my clients, but this was a particularly weird one, because every time he came in to consult, and also he had a need to consult with me weekly, which is not very normal for a divorce. And every time he came in, he told me about the reasons why he's getting divorced, and mostly there was some things lacking from his marriage, and the fact that he kept on telling me about it and wanting to see me the whole time. And I'm like this 24-year-old poppy. I have no idea what's going on around me, and this woman is clearly hitting on me. I said at some stage, I really can't do this anymore. I don't want to work with this client, but I don't want to end my mandate. Now I would end mandate like a queen, but at the time you're desperate for the work. So I went to Ben and I said, please, don't you want to take this client? I'll swap any work that you have. You can give me anything. I just don't want this client, please, please, please. So he said, and this was 2008, so evictions were still everybody was super confused. I think only Greg understood how evictions work. And that's actually where my and Greg's relationship started as well. But nobody knew what was going on. And I said, okay, cool. Give me your 2 evictions. I'll figure it out. And then you just take this woman, he's divorced. And for some reason, I started figuring those 2 evictions out. It took so long, guys. I am embarrassed, and I still do want to apologize to those clients, because you were my test clients. But look what came from it. Thank you. But it took, I think, a good 8 months. I still remember the one, Dumeko, was in Joburg Madge. I was stupid enough to try and do an eviction in Joburg Madge. No wonder it took so long. But I remember I was actually pregnant with my son at the time, and I just had no idea how to do this. I figured it out. And then for some reason, the universe sent a few extra evictions my way. And in about a year from there, for some weird reason, the Law Society, LSSA, noticed that I'm doing evictions. I honestly don't know how, because I think by the time I did maybe 6 or 8 evictions, so not like we think, wow, this one is giftig on an eviction, but I think I was right place, right time. And they approached me to start presenting the eviction seminar for the attorneys in the country. So you travel across the country and you train all the attorneys on evictions. And I was 26 years old at the time. Nice. I had no idea what I was doing, but now I walk into a room full of attorneys, and they're my senior by like forever. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I just winged the living daylights out of it. And in my forced winging, I actually started understanding, this is how it's working. And obviously by now I've crossed the 10,000 hour mark quite a few times, and it was pure luck, or if you're me and you don't believe in coincidence, blessings. And so that was thanks to a fellow client hitting on me, ended me in being a sort of, eviction specialist, I think by now I have a medium idea of how an eviction works.
Lemons, lemonade. You had this old worm eating on you, and now you're like an expert at this. So wow. We need to go and find that worm.
We do. Well, now you can find it.
Bruno, I'm going to ask you the same question. And I obviously worked with you, so I was there for a little bit of it. Almost got kidnapped as well. But I didn't know the story, actually. How did you get into evictions?
Sure. I think where I articled, it was it had a very strong and a predominant property law practice. So they had a very strong debt collection, but the conveyancing department particularly worked really well. And they used to have a lot of investor clients. So it's very similar to some of the stuff that I even do now. So working specifically with investors or developers or whatever, trying to make property deals work, deal making, that sort of thing. And evictions, very similar to Cilna. So evictions weren't a main thing back then. They just had to be done. And the firm had done quite a few of them. But it's so funny in hindsight to look back, like back then, people didn't actually understand how they worked. So, I mean, sure, I think one of the first ones that I did, it was so much misunderstanding because we were going to court applying for a day. And the Pretoria courts were different as well. So you could only do it by way of summons because some of the magistrates said that you weren't allowed to do it by way of application. So you had to issue the summons, then bring a separate application to have the matter heard. And it was just so confusing. And yeah, it was just almost a side product of all the work that we did. So the investors, so as mostly everyone knows, I was very much involved in the sale and execution space, right? So that's where a lot of my evictions kind of came in. So I wasn't always focused on like the way that, that we are now. So back then, sheriff's auctions were big. So we landed up with quite a large group of clients from those auctions. And that's actually how I grew the practice in Joburg. It was from those clients, but they were Joburg based. So they wanted somebody here in Joburg. So we had like the lion's share of these guys across the country. They were buying in every auction across the country, Knysna, Plate, you name it. And the evictions actually became part and parcel. So like a lot of the stories that I've said, and even the stories that I said, I actually toned them down a bit because those are the ones I can probably get away with having a conversation and a laugh over. But they get rough because, I mean, sale and executions are people that used to own the house. So there is like a level of sensitivity and empathy associated with it, but it had to be done. And I suppose that was the one thing. So as we were supporting these clients in the commercial space and the conveyancing space and all of that, the eviction litigation became paramount because that was the whole model. Out of all the sales and execution, you probably landed up having to institute evictions, every 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. So yeah, it just became a product that had to be offered and just became part and parcel of that service delivery. So it just became more and more. And I suppose the thing with the clients is as you offer them that commercial offering to say, I will deal with your commercial mess, the evictions were that because it's part of their investment strategy. So they need evictions done. So as part of I'll handle this for you, the evictions just happened to be something that just gained more and more popularity because they were being handled well, I suppose.
Sure. It's always so interesting to hear this kind of background and the history of both of you, because I mean, we engage with you every week, we get your expertise, but understanding where you've come from and the journeys that you've both taken to get to where you are, to be the experts in the field that you are, it's truly inspiring for me. And I think it's so interesting for our viewers also to learn a little bit about you.
It's funny to imagine like a little Cilna and a little Bruno, like running around.